The internet is on fire right now, and at the center of this explosive storm is a name nobody ever expected to see trending like this. Steve Harvey. A man who built his entire brand on faith, family values, and inspirational speeches is now being dragged into one of the darkest conversations Hollywood has ever seen. Social media is buzzing with whispers that federal investigators could be circling, because alleged footage and insider leaks are tying Steve Harvey to Diddy's infamous underground freak-off parties. The same parties that have already shattered reputations and turned Hollywood upside down. And the most disturbing allegation of all? People are claiming Steve Harvey did not just attend these gatherings, but may have crossed a line so unforgivable that it has left the internet sick to its stomach. According to multiple viral threads and anonymous insiders, Steve Harvey allegedly went as far as using his own daughter, Lori Harvey, as leverage in Hollywood's sick power games. The claim being pushed is that Lori was not just dating within the industry by coincidence, but was strategically placed in Diddy's orbit as part of a deeper, darker arrangement. Whether true or not, the fact that this narrative has gained traction says everything about how fragile Steve Harvey's public image has become overnight. Comment sections are filled with shock, rage, and disbelief. Fans who once praised him are now questioning everything they thought they knew. And here is where the story takes a chilling turn. Because this did not come out of nowhere. Years ago, one man tried to sound the alarm. Katt Williams. At the time, nobody wanted to listen. People laughed him off, called him bitter, jealous, and unstable. They said he was mad because Steve Harvey surpassed him in success. But now, with these new allegations surfacing, the internet is being forced to revisit Katt Williams' words with fresh eyes. Because suddenly, his warnings do not sound so crazy anymore. The tension between Katt Williams and Steve Harvey was never just about comedy. It was personal. It was deep. It was rooted in betrayal, jealousy, and industry politics that most people never see. When Katt appeared on Club Shay Shay, he did not just throw shade. He detonated a bomb. He dismantled Steve Harvey's image piece by piece, exposing what he described as a carefully manufactured fraud. And the reaction was immediate. Steve Harvey reportedly became so enraged that he wanted to meet Katt in person and physically fight him. Imagine that visual. A man who preaches wisdom and peace, ready to throw hands because his mask was slipping. Katt Williams did not back down. He doubled down. Sitting across from Shannon Sharpe, Katt labeled Steve Harvey an industry plant. Not a self-made success story, but a man strategically positioned and protected by powerful forces. Katt accused Steve of resenting Bernie Mac while he was still alive. According to Katt, Steve envied Bernie's natural talent, his authenticity, and his star power. And when Bernie passed away, Katt claims Steve wasted no time stepping into his lane, mimicking his style, and benefiting from a legacy he did not earn. But the allegations did not stop there. Katt Williams also accused Steve Harvey of stealing jokes from Mark Curry, lifting material and repackaging it as his own. He painted a picture of a man who lacked originality, lacked raw talent, and relied on manipulation rather than skill. According to Katt, Steve spent years pretending he had no interest in becoming a movie star, all while secretly plotting his rise and positioning himself to replace those he viewed as obstacles. Then came the final blow. The story Steve Harvey has told for decades about being homeless, sleeping in his car, and struggling to survive. Katt Williams flat out called it a lie. He claimed Steve was never homeless at all. According to Katt, during the very period Steve describes as his lowest point, he was actually earning thousands of dollars per night touring with Mark Curry. Katt accused Steve of fabricating struggle to harvest sympathy, build relatability, and emotionally manipulate audiences into rooting for him. Now, with allegations linking Steve Harvey to freak-off parties, industry corruption, and questionable behavior involving his own family, people are asking one terrifying question. Was Katt Williams telling the truth all along? Social media is rewatching old interviews, dissecting facial expressions, and connecting dots that once seemed invisible. What used to sound like a bitter rant is now being reframed as a warning nobody wanted to hear. If even half of these claims turn out to be true, this is not just a celebrity scandal. This is the collapse of a carefully crafted empire. And Hollywood has a long history of protecting its secrets until it suddenly does not. The question now is not whether Steve Harvey's image can survive this. The real question is how much more is about to come out. And who else is going to be exposed? When the curtain finally falls. The internet made its decision fast, and it did not favor Steve Harvey. When Katt Williams spoke, people overwhelmingly chose his side and dragged Steve Harvey without mercy. Comment sections turned into war zones. Reaction videos exploded overnight. Memes, breakdowns, and stitched clips flooded every platform. Steve tried to pretend none of it bothered him. At first, he posted vague motivational clips about haters always being loud when you are successful. He smiled. He preached. He acted unbothered. But time has a way of exposing cracks. 7 months later, Steve Harvey finally snapped and responded directly, warning Katt Williams to stay quiet. That moment alone told the audience everything they needed to know. Silence had failed him. Katt Williams, however, did not respond. Not because he was scared, but because Steve waited 7 whole months to say something. In the world of public perception, that delay spoke louder than any threat ever could. But Katt's silence did not mean the conversation stopped. In fact, it escalated. Because as soon as Katt's name re-entered the headlines, people started digging deeper into Steve Harvey's past. And what they claimed to find sent the internet into another spiral. While discussions about alleged freak-off parties intensified, old clips of Steve Harvey resurfaced and began circulating with new meaning. Viewers claimed they had uncovered moments where Steve appeared to openly reference behavior disturbingly similar to what Diddy had been accused of. On his own television show, Steve once spoke candidly about his private life, joking with the audience about his bedroom habits. He admitted to using excessive amounts of baby oil, explaining that he enjoyed how it felt. At the time, it was brushed off as humor. Now, people are rewatching those clips with raised eyebrows and uneasy expressions. Steve did not stop there. He labeled himself a baby oil professional, proudly describing how he preferred it slightly heated before use. That detail alone caused social media to erupt, because it mirrored allegations already circulating about Diddy's preferences at those infamous gatherings. The internet does not forget patterns, and it does not ignore coincidences. To make matters worse, Steve later created an entire comedic song declaring that baby oil was for adults, not babies. A harmless joke back then. A disturbing red flag now, according to online speculation. The clip resurfaced again, this time from TikTok, posted years earlier in 2020. People could not believe how long the signs had allegedly been hiding in plain sight. The narrative shifted from coincidence to suspicion. Commentators began asking whether the audience had been laughing through warning signs the entire time. But just when the story seemed like it could not get darker, a far more disturbing rumor resurfaced. The streets began whispering that Steve Harvey himself was the reason Lori Harvey and Diddy were ever linked. Allegations spread claiming that Steve orchestrated the relationship behind the scenes, prioritizing power and proximity over protection. Lori Harvey was connected to Diddy in 2019, when she was 22 years old and he was nearing 50. The age gap alone sparked outrage. What shocked people even more was the public support. Steve and his wife Marjorie appeared alongside them, smiling for cameras, standing close, projecting approval. To outsiders, it looked like another glamorous Hollywood arrangement. Privilege wrapped in luxury. Cameras flashing. Smiles on cue. But behind the curated images, people began questioning everything. Why would a father support a relationship between his daughter and someone his own age? Why did nobody seem uncomfortable except the audience watching from the outside? The relationship ended as quickly as it began. 3 months. No explanation. No closure. Just silence. According to industry whispers, Diddy never intended anything serious. Lori quietly unfollowed him, signaling the end without saying a word. Another chapter closed without answers. But the controversy did not start there. Before Diddy, Lori had already been pulled into another unsettling narrative. She had been linked to Diddy's son, Justin. The internet did what it always does. It speculated. It exaggerated. It turned rumors into headlines and headlines into alleged facts. Context disappeared. Nuance died. Lori became a character in a story she never wrote. For years, she stayed silent. Silence, however, is rarely rewarded in celebrity culture. Instead, it becomes fuel. Rumors multiplied. Narratives hardened. The story evolved into something grotesque, suggesting lines crossed that should never be crossed. Power. Access. Fathers and sons. A scandal designed for outrage. Finally, in 2023, Lori Harvey broke her silence. In an interview, she addressed the rumors directly. She did not sound defensive. She sounded exhausted. She explained that most of the stories written about her were complete fiction. Entire relationships had been invented out of thin air. Emotional arcs assigned to men she had never met. She described the surreal experience of reading about herself being deeply involved with people she had never spoken to. Imagine discovering your identity has been rewritten by strangers. Imagine watching your reputation get dismantled by clickbait narratives that value shock over truth. Lori explained that she had seen men in public whom the internet claimed she had loved, only to realize she had never even met them. Her life had been turned into a spectacle. Her silence had been mistaken for guilt. Now, with old clips resurfacing, allegations circulating, and Katt Williams' warnings echoing louder than ever, people are asking the same question across every platform. Was this all coincidence, or were the signs there all along? Because Hollywood has a habit of laughing first, ignoring second, and only believing once it is too late. And this story feels far from over. Then Lori addressed the most explosive rumor of all, the one that had followed her like a shadow for years. She shut it down without hesitation. No nervous laughter. No vague wording. No room for interpretation. She stated clearly that she had never dated a father and son. Absolutely not true. The firmness of her response cut straight through the noise, exposing just how reckless and exaggerated the speculation had become. Yet, as always, truth arrived late to a party where scandal had already overstayed its welcome. By the time denial enters the conversation, damage has usually already been done. But this is where the narrative takes an even darker and more uncomfortable turn. Because while Lori publicly shut down the rumors about Justin, whispers continued to circulate about the environment she had allegedly been pulled into. And more disturbingly, about the role the adults around her were rumored to have played. According to street-level gossip and anonymous online theories, the claim is not that Steve Harvey was indifferent or unaware, but that he was allegedly afraid. These unverified stories suggest that Diddy may have held leverage over Steve, allegedly in the form of private footage from exclusive gatherings. Footage that, if exposed, could have obliterated carefully protected reputations overnight. To be clear, these are allegations, not established facts. But the reason these rumors gain traction is because they fit an uncomfortable pattern people have seen before. In elite circles, power does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it controls through silence, fear, and the threat of exposure. Hollywood has long been haunted by stories of compromat, airtight non-disclosure agreements, and quiet understandings that keep people compliant. Whether these claims are grounded in truth or not, the public perception alone reveals how deeply people distrust the systems protecting the powerful. What makes this narrative especially disturbing is the way it reframes Lori's position. In these whispered versions of events, she is not portrayed as a decision-maker, but as collateral. A young woman positioned between powerful men, their secrets, and their egos. Suddenly, the story shifts away from sensationalized dating rumors and towards something far more unsettling. Control. Silence. Exploitation. Even if these claims are nothing more than gossip, the fact that so many people find them believable speaks volumes about the culture they come from. Lori's response to all of this has been consistent. She has kept moving forward. She has not built a brand off chaos. She has not capitalized on scandal. Instead, she chose distance and discretion. When she quietly unfollowed Diddy, it may have seemed insignificant to outsiders, but symbolically it mattered. It was a refusal to remain tethered to a narrative she never authored. She did not owe the public drama. She did not owe anyone explanations beyond the truth she chose to share. Still, the internet rarely allows women in her position the grace to simply exist. Her silence was dissected. Her movements were analyzed. Every appearance was treated like evidence in a case she never consented to participate in. That is the cruelty of celebrity culture. When you stay quiet, others speak for you. When you do not overshare, people fill in the gaps with their darkest assumptions. Being reserved in a world addicted to noise makes you an easy target. At its core, this story has become a cautionary tale about proximity to power. About how quickly control over your own narrative can slip once you are connected to influential figures. Rumors do not require proof to survive. They only need curiosity, repetition, and outrage. Lori's experience highlights how young women linked to famous men are often stripped of agency in public storytelling. They stop being people and become plot devices in narratives designed to entertain rather than inform. And while the truth may never fully untangle itself from the speculation, one thing remains consistent. Lori has repeatedly denied the most damaging claims, and she has done so without theatrics. In a culture addicted to scandal, restraint itself becomes a statement. Whether the public chooses to believe her says far more about collective appetite for controversy than it does about her character. Of course, none of this can be presented as definitive truth. Even Lori herself has denied these narratives repeatedly. But the reality of the internet is that belief does not wait for evidence. Once a storyline takes hold, it becomes self-sustaining. Old clips resurface. Vague connections are reinterpreted. Coincidences are treated as confirmations. To those who believe this theory, there are simply too many overlaps to ignore. Too many moments that feel suspiciously aligned. In their minds, this was never just gossip. It was an arrangement hiding in plain sight. According to those who subscribe to this belief, Steve and Marjorie appearing everywhere alongside Diddy and Lori was not accidental. They argue that proximity was intentional. The theory suggests Lori was allegedly being positioned as a form of insurance, a peace offering meant to keep Diddy satisfied, distracted, and silent. In this interpretation, the situation was never about romance. It was about protection, survival, maintaining status in an industry where crossing the wrong person can quietly erase everything you have built. What fueled this speculation even further was Steve Harvey's own public behavior. His repeated jokes and oddly specific fixation on baby oil during television segments and comedy bits began to feel unsettling to some viewers. On their own, the jokes meant nothing. Comedians exaggerate quirks all the time. But once the internet decided to connect those moments to larger allegations, the tone shifted. What once sounded harmless suddenly felt loaded. To some, it no longer sounded like comedy. It sounded like something slipping through the cracks. And once the internet connects dots, fair or not, there is no undoing it. The joke becomes the accusation. Laughter becomes suspicion. Context disappears. What remains is a narrative that feeds itself, growing louder with every repost, every reaction, every stitched clip. And in that noise, truth often struggles to be heard. This is how reputations unravel in real time. Not always through proof, but through perception. And in Hollywood, perception can be just as dangerous as reality. Once the clips of Steve Harvey enthusiastically joking about baby oil resurfaced, they did not just circulate. They detonated. Users clipped them, slowed them down, zoomed in on facial expressions, added captions dripping with suspicion, and stitched them with commentary that reframed the moments as revelations instead of jokes. What once passed as awkward humor was suddenly treated like coded confession. TikTok, a platform obsessed with uncovering hidden industry truths, became the epicenter. The narrative shifted almost overnight. It was no longer, "This is strange." It became, "This explains everything." And once that shift happens online, no clarification ever fully puts the genie back in the bottle. Then came another layer. Claims began spreading that Steve and his team were working behind the scenes to scrub those clips from the internet. One popular TikTok creator alleged that his posts mysteriously disappeared after gaining traction. He shared screenshots, timelines, and engagement drops as what he called receipts. He accused Steve of attempting to silence the conversation instead of addressing it directly. In the court of public opinion, that distinction matters. Damage control often gets interpreted as guilt. Even though content removal can happen for countless reasons, nuance rarely survives once virality takes over. To be clear, there is no definitive proof that Steve orchestrated takedowns. There is no public confirmation of private conversations, deals, or so-called arrangements. No one outside those inner circles can honestly claim first-hand knowledge of what happened behind closed doors. But belief does not require proximity. For many observers, the pattern alone feels convincing. Once something appears to make sense emotionally, people stop asking whether it is accurate and start asking why they did not see it sooner. What further complicated Steve's public image, at least among critics, is that the baby oil commentary never truly stopped. Even as backlash grew, even as speculation intensified, he continued leaning into the joke. To some, this came across as confidence. To others, arrogance. And to skeptics, it felt like overcompensation. Like someone laughing louder and louder to drown out whispers they refused to confront directly. Humor, in that context, stopped feeling harmless. Social media, predictably, had no shortage of theories. One widely shared comment suggested that Lori's alleged involvement with Diddy was not about romance at all, but about strategy. The commenter framed it as transactional, claiming Lori was allegedly used to secure access, protection, and upward mobility